Let me tell you a short story. There was a man who lived in a tower, far away from the hustle and bustle of the town. He created maps for the people. His high vantage point allowed him to see the patterns of the landscape, which would emerge clearly to him as great fixtures of light. He felt safe up here. He could prepare everything perfectly before revealing it, and the people would find such utility in his maps that they thanked him and looked at him fondly. Despite his loneliness, the man felt reassured by their approval, by their adoration, and he would sit in his tower alone, smiling to himself at the thought of their kind words and gestures about his maps. He felt a deep, quiet relief that they found him useful. They would invite him down, but the man would make excuses, saying he had to stay up there to keep working on the maps. One day they asked him to come down in order to finesse the part of the map which reflected the town. The people wanted more detail and asked the man to come down, and he nervously followed suit. The man found himself surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the people. He started working on the map, but he felt disoriented and overwhelmed by the feelings of the people. Every time the man tried to identify the patterns to place them on the map, they kept changing and moving. Unlike from the high vantage point of the tower, the patterns weren't emerging as great fixtures of light, but instead a terrible, dark, chaotic mess. The people gave him confusing and conflicting instructions on what they wanted, and the man felt a terrible dread. He felt at any minute now they would kick him out of the town. You're watching Archetypal Wisdom. Join me in exploring the symbolic truths and mysteries of humankind. Remember to like and subscribe. Now, back to the video. The man wanted desperately to be back in the tower, in his safety. He desperately wanted to return to his place of good standing from afar. The people left the man to work on the map, and he sat there engulfed in the dysfunctional patterns of the town, desperately trying to see them clearly and organize them to detail the map. As the man sat there trying to sort through the chaos, he heard a voice. "Why do you fear?" The man looked around, but all he could see was the dark, frenetic shapes of chaos that had replaced the town. The man responded, "I can't see the fixtures of light that give me purpose in the world." The voice questioned, "Why does it give you purpose?" "Because the people praise and thank me for it." "So your purpose is to receive the praise of others?" The man was shocked to hear this and sat in silence. He realized that this was a terrible and true statement. "What do I do?" the man called out to the voice. "You must seek the light for the sake of the light, not for the attention of the world. The world does not want the light. Therefore you will always be in chaos if you look to the world for the light." The man sat with this for a moment before asking, "But how do I seek the light for the sake of the light when all I see around me is a dark chaos?" "You do not see dark chaos. You refuse to see the truth of the town for fear of being abandoned, and thus you have hidden your own capacity to see. You hide from your responsibility, and you see chaos." The man sat in silence for a long time, pondering the voice's statement. He realized he was terrified of losing the town, losing the approval, the acceptance. It was this that kept him in the tower, that motivated him to share his sight, and that left him in chaos within the town. You have already lost the approval of the people. Now you are free to seek the light for the sake of the light. This was the voice's final statement. The man looked at the surrounding chaos and it started to calm. He felt less disturbed until he could see the town with clarity. The man drew what he saw, and there was great anger in the town. The people felt affronted by his map, offended by his depiction. The man was no longer disturbed and overwhelmed by the feelings of the people, and he told them this is simply what he saw. Some of the people demanded he leave, but others were deeply grateful for what he had shared. The man, no longer living in his tower, now existed in the town, in the midst of the people. Despite the town's divided sentiment towards him, the man was protected by the light which spoke to him and guided his every step. He now walked in the world fully, but no longer did he belong to it. He was free. This story reflects on the pain of being bound by the perception and opinions of others. How do we free ourselves of this? I always find profound guidance from the archetypal stories of humanity, and in fact I believe this is the very purpose they serve. They can be understood as the collective wisdom from across millennia encoded into a story. One line that spoke to me deeply in contemplating this tension of being trapped by approval was the famous statement spoken by Christ, "Be in the world but not of it." What a beautiful and mysterious statement. While I'm sure there are many layers to be extrapolated from this saying, to me I understand it to be speaking to the need to be guided by a higher principle while amongst the world, instead of following the crowd. The more I contemplate on this line, the more it reminds me of the psychological journey of individuation. Individuation can be understood as the lifelong experience of going within to discover more of yourself and then integrating it into your conscious personality. It's a journey of truth, becoming who you truly are. Well, if this is actually acted out, then of course you will not be swayed by the world, but you will act in accordance with the truth within yourself, just as the man remained amongst the people of the town speaking truly. I think for many, myself included, the sentiment behind "be in the world but not of it" can sometimes feel like justification for not getting involved and hiding from the chaos of the world. But it seems to me that something else is actually being asked with this statement. It appears that actually we need to be very much involved with the world, but answering to the truth within our own being and conscience. Psychologically speaking, this can be understood as the self-archetype, which is the totality of the psyche, both the conscious and unconscious. This is the voice of the deep that presses itself upon the ego, the conscious personality of the individual, compelling it to grow and develop. Attachment to the world, attachment to the approval of others, is a significant block to this process, just as it shrouded the man's vision in chaos. One will go to great lengths to ignore the voice of the deep in order to remain in the group's good standing. I often marvel at how ancient and spiritual teachings challenge us to move beyond our primal instincts of survival, which are so intensely ingrained. In fact, to amplify some of the biblical themes being contemplated, the Holy Spirit is also described as the helper and the spirit of truth, to help humanity enter the kingdom. Well, this continues to parallel with psychological truth. Telling the truth unites an individual psychologically. Being able to articulate who they are and what they have experienced is a healing and uniting experience. To be truthful with others can sometimes divide, but invariably produces trust and respect. Truth, therefore, can be understood as a stabilizing force, but it will disrupt anything within ourselves or the world which is operating in opposition to it. The reversal of this, of course, is that when one lies or withholds in order to maintain the harmony of the group, it fractures the individual internally and creates disorder. As the old adage goes, to avoid a war without, one starts a war within. So truthfulness can be understood as uniting an individual internally, which is also what the self-archetype is understood to do. The self-archetype is seen as the organizing principle of the psyche. It brings all the many divided parts into orbit and under one unified total. I have so often felt compromised by my need to harmonize with the group and to not cause disruption. So often have I avoided conflict and withheld in order to do so. Just like the man in the story, I have taken great comfort in offering my help at a distance, keeping safe from the troubling and messy aspects of life. I too have fallen prey to the need to be held in high esteem at the sacrifice of truth. Yet as painful as it has been in the times I have fallen short, it has also been liberating. Nothing gives one the opportunity to heal their unhealed wounds like a total exposure of them. Recently I had the experience of having lost favor with people who I so desperately sought it from. Yet as painful as this period was, it also allowed me to make peace with the experience of not being held in such high esteem at all times in order to feel safe. I first felt terrible dread, however eventually this turned into a liberation from the expectation. Interestingly, it was actually this experience that allowed me to feel more rooted in myself and less outsourced to the opinion of others. In other words, this allowed me to return to a deeper and more truthful experience of both myself, and thus allowed me to feel safer being more truthful in the environment and less dependent on the group's constant approval. Just like the man in the story, it allowed me to start seeking the light for the sake of the light. Truth, it seems, is almost like a magnet. It unites that which is true and repels that which is false. It comes at a cost, burning the parts of ourselves which are deceptive and holding us back, and it can also alienate us from others who are in a state of denial and dishonesty themselves. Yet truth also promises transformation and rebirth, inviting more and more of yourself into conscious integration. To walk in the world but not belong to it is to follow the light even as it burns away what is false. It is to stand amidst a crowd, yet answer to something deeper, something unshaken, something true. You've been watching Archetypal Wisdom. Remember to like and subscribe. Stay wise.